This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to debunk some common Bitcoin myths that you'll often see being spread online by altcoiners. And in order to do so, I'm going to work my way through an exchange that I had with ShipcoinMillionaire on Twitter. Here was his first post. Do you ever wonder why Bitcoin's only narrative it still holds on to is store of value, which is pure speculation? It will never be used for payments at any scale. That's quite a far-reaching prediction to make, I think. It will never be used for payments at any scale, never for tokenization, never for smart contracts. The problem is you all never leave your walled garden. I think ShipcoinMillionaire is making a few mistakes here. First of all, denigrating Bitcoin as just a store of value is a pretty silly thing to do, especially because store of value really has the largest total addressable market of anything in the world, literally a place to store all the world's current wealth and all future wealth that has yet to be created if Bitcoin wins the store of value race, which it appears to be winning. Meanwhile, what does ShipcoinMillionaire want to push? He wants to push some crappy coins that some centralized company is using to make it easier to pretend to settle, quote unquote, settle real estate transactions on a blockchain. Really? You think that's a larger use case? And then he goes on to say that Bitcoin is just pure speculation. It's a purely speculative asset. And I would ask ShipcoinMillionaire, how do you know this? Just asserting something doesn't make it true. And I can come up with a lot of very easy counterexamples. For example, is this a purely speculative use of Bitcoin to cheaply and quickly send money from the US to family members in Mexico in the form of remittances and completely bypass Western Union's high fees and slow service? This is something that a lot of US citizens or Mexican American citizens already do to send money back to their Mexican relatives. Then we have the case of how to dictator-proof your money. This is an essay by Alex Gladstein in which he talks about how human rights activists all around the world are using Bitcoin. So these are two very clear examples where Bitcoin is not being used as a speculative asset, but it's being used as a very useful day-to-day asset. So I guess Bitcoin is not purely speculative. Maybe ShipcoinMillionaire is just angry that Bitcoin trades globally 24/7, 365, and that it has the deepest and most liquid and most free markets of any global asset. Or maybe when he uses speculative as a negative, he's just saying that he doesn't like free markets, or he doesn't like free markets that are being used to price assets, or maybe he prefers to have a Soviet-style centralized committee set the prices of everything. If you're going to have free markets, there's always going to be some speculation involved. In other words, buyers and sellers working together to try to agree on a price at which to exchange things. If you're enjoying this video so far, I just ask you to help to support this channel. Hit the subscribe button. That really does help with the YouTube algorithm. Leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video. Share this video with a friend or family member. So he goes on to talk about how Bitcoin will never be used for payments at any scale. This is in the face of obvious evidence. For example, of 2021, Bitcoin settled 4 times the value of Visa and about 6% the value of what was settled annually on Fedwire, which is the global settlement network really for the world. This was 45 trillion roughly in 2021 being moved across the network. Then we also have the Lightning Network, which uses Bitcoin. Here's an example from Francis down in Bitcoin Jungle. Just paid my groceries with Bull Bitcoin wallet straight to the vendor's Lightning wallet. Private, instant, easy, a few cents in fees, scan a QR code, and that's it. People are definitely using Bitcoin to buy and sell goods and services. They're not using XRP to do this. And when ShipcoinMillionaire talks this way, he sounds a lot like what Francis is parodying here. Quote, the cryptocurrency system I've designed in my head is superior to the one that processes $2 trillion per month without any issue. Then ShipcoinMillionaire goes on to talk about how Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts. In fact, Bitcoin actually does have smart contracts, very simple smart contracts like multisig, time locks, and then combinations like HTLCs, hash time lock contracts that enable Lightning Network usage. Bitcoin does not have complex smart contracts, and this is a conscious design decision, not some careless oversight caused by Bitcoiners being troglodytes. Bitcoin is not Turing complete, that is true, but this is by design in order to protect Bitcoin from denial of service attacks that can be carried out using logic loops and similar things that you can enable with smart contracts and a more expressive scripting language. Ethereum does have much greater smart contract expressivity, which gives it a much wider attack surface. There's always these trade-offs, as well as causing unbelievable bloat of the Ethereum blockchain, such that very, very few individuals in the world run a full archival Ethereum node. ShipcoinMillionaire goes on to say, lol, facts struck a nerve, didn't they? You little boys are very fragile. When someone presents an argument that contradicts all your research, please, can Bitcoin tokenize RWAs, real-world assets? Can it handle large payment volumes efficiently? Can it handle smart contracts? Answer is no. I go on to reply to him, something similar to what I just said here. Bitcoin made a conscious design decision to limit its attack surface by limiting its smart contract and other functionality. Bitcoin still does have smart contracts, but they're pretty basic. Tokenized real-world assets still rely on the legacy legal system for ultimate enforcement, so really it's just LARPing to put your real estate, to put your home on the blockchain, because the actual ownership is enforced by the US legal system and by the police. It's not being enforced by the blockchain. So that is all LARPing of the kind that shipcoiners do. I go on to talk about the limited transaction volume. It's limited by block space at the base layer on chain, the base layer of Bitcoin. If you don't limit block space, you'll never end up with a robust transaction fee market after the block subsidy, which is currently 3.125 Bitcoin, goes away. Any other questions? ShipcoinMillionaire goes on to talk about the same things. Bitcoin does have first mover advantage, but it's slow, it's expensive, it's not scalable, and save the Lightning Network garbage, it can't handle volume, and it's unreliable as well. This is simply not true. Lightning is still a developing technology and the network's still being built out, but it certainly works better than any of these shipcoin networks. And so I go on to respond to his critique that Bitcoin is slow. Why do you think that Bitcoin has 10-minute average blocks? Is it just because Satoshi was dumb? He goes on to respond the four of them weren't stupid by any means, referring to some silly conspiracy theory that Satoshi, I believe, was identified by TSA and is actually four individuals. This is the kind of thing you always hear from XRP people. I think there's no evidence for this whatsoever, but basically pointing out to him that Bitcoin has 10-minute average block times, and this is a conscious decision. One reason for these 10-minute average block times is you need to allow enough time for new blocks to propagate globally and be verified by nodes everywhere in order to minimize chain reorgs and allow the whole network to keep up and stay in consensus. With the internet, the global internet, you have to deal with internet latency, internet congestion, Bitcoin node operators that have slower internet connections in less wealthy parts of the world, etc. So this is the compromise that Satoshi chose, and I think it's turned out quite well for the Bitcoin network. If you want to go a little bit deeper down this rabbit hole, I'll also link to this video in which I talk about whether Bitcoin is too slow. If we take a look at ShipcoinMillionaire's profile, this begins to make sense. He's pushing things like XRP and ICP and all these washed up projects. This seems to be shipcoiner logic. I see this quite frequently. What they'll do is they'll repeat verbatim online every critique of Bitcoin that they've heard from shipcoin scammers like the Ripple XRP guys or Charles Hoskinson of Cardano, or one of these scammers, in my opinion. Things like Bitcoin only does store value, it'll never be used for payments, it's too slow, it doesn't have smart contracts, it's outdated tech. Then they go on to say other cryptos are more technologically advanced and useful. And then the shipcoiner makes a really weird logical leap. That's why, because these other cryptos are so much more technologically advanced than Bitcoin, that's why I'm going to jump in and out of those other cryptos like a degen, paying lots of short-term capital gains taxes that eat into my returns, all while pretending to myself that I'll be able to identify the top of the current cycle, even though I failed miserably to do it correctly last cycle. This is something that happened to ShipcoinMillionaire. I asked him, how did you do the last cycle post-tax? Because you seem to think you're a really good trader. ShipcoinMillionaire responds, made the mistake of holding everything through the BS narratives, but it wasn't much anyway. I've dropped a solid 6 figures in this time and won't miss this opportunity. I have Bitcoin, by the way. I'm not a hater of the tech, just don't care for the maxis of any space. I responded to him, I can almost guarantee that you are overestimating your trading and timing abilities. Of course, he did poorly in the last cycle, so I'm not sure he understands why he thinks he's going to do better this cycle. I can almost guarantee that you're overestimating your trading and timing abilities, and I speak as someone who helped start and run a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. Better to just hodl Bitcoin for the next decade. He responds, I will easily have the ability to become a multi-hull coiner by the next bear market. And if not, assets are still valuable and I will do just fine. I appreciate the concern though. I don't need 1,000x to change my life. I'll never be interested in timing the top. And then I point out to him, you'd already be a multi-Bitcoin hull coiner. In other words, you'd own 2 or more Bitcoin. If you just bought Bitcoin in 2020 instead of messing around with Shipcoins, you could have bought 2 Bitcoin, for example, in 2020 for $10,000 at multiple points in time. So this is a sad thing about some people. They don't learn from their past mistakes. They were very bad traders in the previous cycle. They think they're going to be very good traders in this cycle, and yet they're focused on the same old trashy, scammy assets like XRP and newer assets that have been issued that are very centralized, where you have a large pre-mine and you're being dumped on by people who are much smarter than you are. It's important to remember too that trading altcoins to get more Bitcoin is always a bad idea. I'll link to this video in the description notes below, but some of the reasons for it, which I want to highlight here because people seem to forget this quite quickly. Here's the main problem with trading altcoins in order to get more Bitcoin. This investment strategy makes a number of assumptions that may not turn out to be correct. These assumptions are you can personally identify the beginning of the bull market, the crypto or Bitcoin bull market. You can personally identify the end of the bull market. You're able to pick altcoins to outperform Bitcoin during the bull market, which may not happen because you're probably a bad trader or because huge inflows into the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF may cause Bitcoin to outperform everything else across the next few bull and bear markets. You think you're able to jump from crypto to crypto profitably while compensating for short-term capital gains taxes that eat away at your returns. Another big assumption is bad things aren't going to happen to you while you're trading. Hopefully you're not going to get your crypto or fiat that's on a crypto exchange hacked, rugged, lost, frozen, as has happened with many crypto casinos, including FTX and BlockFi. Another assumption, you are able at some time in the future to exchange your altcoins or fiat for Bitcoin and successfully withdraw to cold storage without being stopped by withdrawal limits or government bans on self-custody. I go on to conclude, don't be the guy whose grandchildren have to sadly recount how he bought a dusty lot in the Nevada desert when he could have been buying beachfront property in Malibu in 1950. Don't be the guy who owned Cardano or Hex in 2023 instead of Bitcoin. Don't be the guy who buys a proof-of-stake altcoin just weeks before the SEC sues the project in 2024. Don't choose crypto. Don't choose fiat. Choose Bitcoin. Choose the asset that people who are much smarter than you, like Michael Saylor and Ricardo Salinas, are buying. Choose Bitcoin and get on the winning team now before it is too late. And I hope that ShipcoinMillionaire will heed these words and be smarter this cycle than he or she was last cycle. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.